Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Gomes. I'm here to talk to you about astrology, in particular Vedic astrology, and how the month of December will affect us all. I'd like to start by talking a little bit about the election and what happened with the election, and just pointing out that we still have the election being contested, although it looks more and more likely that former Vice President Biden is the president-elect. But there are still some planetary combinations which have to be considered before we can reach that actual conclusion. So essentially, I'm not saying he will not become president. I'm saying there's a little bit more of this particular drama to be played out before the final chapter is closed. So essentially, what we have right now is, and I'll be going over the chart. By the way, if you like my channel, please subscribe. Let other people know about it. Share the channel. It helps a lot. We do have a school which is in the throes of opening up, and I am going to have better quality videos this next year, Scouts Honor. But basically, uh, so we have the YouTube channel. We have the Northeast Institute of Vedic Astrology and Science and Sciences. We're affiliated with Astrology in Turkey. I'm also an instructor at Kepler College in Washington State, and also with the American College of Vedic Astrology in Arizona, based out of Arizona. So, and I'm also affiliated with the Dyra Academy, which is based out of Holland. So I have a lot of affiliations in a lot of places. You can study with me. If you want to study with me one-on-one, beautiful. I can set up classes with you individually. And also you can have charts done by me personally. I can't tell you the prices, but I can tell you they're very detailed readings, and I think you'll be happy with them. So, end of that particular plug. We will be giving you more information about Kepler, Aqua, NEIVAS, Astrodea over the next few months, and so stay tuned. There's a lot more coming. All right, so like, share, subscribe. I want to grow this channel immensely, and I'm having some very exciting interviews coming up with people who are essentially important people in the astrological community. I'll send you more details as the interviews get finalized, and that's the marvelous thing. And also, I'll be appearing at an Astrological Lodge of London conference on December 6th, talking about progressions and how to use them in a Vedic chart. So it looks like an interesting time. It's an interesting time to be involved in astrology. These are interesting times, and the U.S. is going through an interesting period that will continue to be going through no matter who's president. Even if Mr. Biden is president, essentially we're in for a bumpy ride over the next, I would say, 14 years or so. So it isn't over yet, folks. The one thing I can tell you is, I think, just based upon the estimates I've made, I was premature in calling for COVID to be under control at the times I did previously. And I'll admit to that, and I'll take full responsibility for any mistakes I make. But I think you're going to see, with the introduction of the vaccine, I think the vaccine is going to be very successful based on the astrology. I also think you're going to see a lot sooner rather than later a return to normal activity across the United States and across the world. So maybe conservatively by the middle of the year, unconservatively maybe as early as April. So that's the good news. In terms of politics, Politics is a subject I really don't like to discuss because people have very strong feelings about politics, and I'm aware of that. So I think one of the things I'll do is I'll point out some of the things that are coming up. And we have two big events this month. We have two eclipses coming up, one on November 29th to the 30th, and one on December 14th. Believe it or not, the December 14th event is a little bit less significant than the November 29th to 30th. And that's mainly because the area in which the eclipse can be seen is a lot narrower. The solar eclipse can be seen as a lot narrower than the area in which the lunar eclipse will be seen. The lunar eclipse will be seen in about 80% of the world. And it will be focused over North America, Europe, into parts of Asia. So it'll be a pretty widespread, I would say kind of a panicky event, because that's what lunar eclipses are. They cause panic. They don't really cause change, but they cause panic. They cause a lot of people getting very excited and very angry and very upset and very worried. So that's where all of like the worry that we've had over the past month has come from. That's where all the panic has come from. And also, I'm hoping because of Jupiter entering Capricorn that it will slow down the spread of the coronavirus, because I've noticed that when Jupiter's strong, Jupiter's a planet that grows things, and I use what's called a sidereal astrology chart, which is a star-based chart. It's a little different from Western astrology, which only goes back. It follows the normal seasons, but a Vedic chart fixes the planets and pushes them back to about 23 degrees previous into the previous sign. So basically, we're looking at a lot of these, both these eclipses occurring in Scorpio and Taurus axis. So people who have Scorpio and Taurus planets or rising signs will tend to be hit fairly hard by these eclipses, but not necessarily in bad ways. So just keep in mind, whenever an astrological event occurs, it's not the end of the world. Some people will not even feel it unless their charts have planets involved in that particular eclipse. Or, the sun and the moon and the rising sign are the obvious ones, but other planets involved with the eclipse event can actually be affected, and that'll affect, let's say, our love life. That'll affect our communications. That'll affect our Venus love life, Mercury communications, Jupiter opportunities, Saturn stability in life, and Rahu our desires and ambitions. Rahu is one of the eclipse causing planets, and Mars our anger, our temper, our willingness to fight. Okay. So all those planets, and the moon will affect our mothers, and the sun will affect our fathers, but also our happiness or general unhappiness, and also our will or willingness to stand up for ourselves. That's the sun. So essentially, all these things will be affected by eclipses. But basically, these two eclipses are important mainly because they're in pivotal places in both candidates' charts. Essentially, both if Vice President Biden's chart is correct, and there is some doubt that it is, he has a Scorpio rising, and his Taurus in the 7th house. So the eclipse point will hit his rising sign, and K2 will hit his rising sign. Rahu will hit his 7th house, which is not an auspicious omen for his health. In President Trump's chart, the eclipse will hit his moon sign, and so the South Lunar Node, called K2 in Indian astrology, will hit his moon sign, and Rahu will hit his sun sign. So those are two pretty sensitive points in the charts for both individuals. With Rahu hitting Trump's sun sign is a little bit more favorable for him, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the election is going to be reversed and he's going to win. But he may get further in court than a lot of people think he will. And I think also, for the case with hitting his moon, that can cause some depression, that can cause some isolation. So that won't be a good period for him emotionally. For Vice President Biden, it's a more complicated matter. Vice President Biden's chart, like I said, if it is correct, there was some doubt about this. It's going to hit, K2 is going to hit his first house, and Rahu will hit his seventh house. So the first house is the person's physical health. K2 passing over the first house can give health problems, especially mental problems, problems with the brain. And Rahu hitting over the seventh house is really dangerous to health. So fingers crossed he doesn't get sick or ill or have some kind of a bad illness visit on him. President Trump is in the same danger, to be honest, only it's a little bit more direct in Vice President Biden's chart than it is in President Trump's chart. The other thing is, when you look at the U.S., I'm just going to pull up the eclipse charts for you to look at for a second. Okay. Let me see what I have. Okay, let's see eclipse season chart. Pull this up. Share it. All right. So let's see eclipse for November 29th. Should be I did have this up in another iteration of the program, but I'm going to go from memory. 232 roughly. We should have a Virgo rising. Just using the Bedford. So let's look at it, see what it does. No, I didn't need to do that. It's still going to do it anyway, but I can fix it. So let's go to fix this data. 2020. It's a long time ago, huh? All right. All right. So we have a Virgo rising, and you can see Sun and K2 and Mercury are in Scorpio over here. So this is, if you go from the top left-hand side of the chart, you have Pisces, Aries, Taurus, Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, and back to Aquarius. Now, something significant has happened since the last time I spoke with you, and that is Jupiter has changed signs. So Jupiter's with Saturn. So this is kind of a significant event. Happens actually more frequently than you realize, but certain of these cycles only happen once every. They're going to happen once every 60 years, to be sure, in this particular configuration. But basically, whenever Saturn and Jupiter conjoin, there's the natural optimism of the U.S. chart. The U.S. is a Sagittarius, tends to turn a little bit to fear because Saturn is essentially, it tampers down expectations. It makes things seem very, very hard or very difficult. And also Saturn's aspecting Mars, and it will be for about another 4 weeks or so, after which Mars will move into Aries after the eclipse. And Mars is also aspecting, in this chart, Mars is also aspecting Venus. Mars throws an 8-sign aspect on charts. It's also aspecting Virgo, and it's also aspecting Gemini. So it's aspecting the 7th house of U.S. allies. But this Saturn-Mars, this is where a lot of the what I would call the nitpicking detail and a lot of the external that's showing up in tracing the vote is coming up also in terms of the vaccination is coming from. And also, so you'll see the vaccination start to move like relatively quickly when Mars enters Aries. I can virtually guarantee that. The other thing is, though, that Saturn Mars is going to give a lot of there's going to be a desire to essentially not accept the word of the people in charge. And essentially that includes the media, that includes pretty much everybody. So the court cases will continue. They may even continue after the electors are met, to be truthful, but I'm tending to think they'll be resolved before that. The other interesting thing is, if you look at Joe Biden's chart, and again, this isn't an exact chart, but if you look at Joe Biden's chart, after December 14th and December 15th, he actually enters a Saturn subperiod. So this can mean, number one, additional responsibility, or two, additional hardships. So if his chart is correct, that Rahu in that placement isn't really good for him. So we'll see how this all pans out. Every astrologer can be wrong, and I'm not even trying to cover for myself in terms of saying Trump was going to be the next president. Every astrologer can be wrong, and every astrologer can have their filters blocked by what they see or what they've said. And it takes a little bit of, but you can't go into this field if you have too large an ego, because people will have their way. They won't necessarily pay attention to a chart. The chart indicates which factors are working. If we're looking at the Trump chart, he has Saturn in the 12th house. Saturn in the 12th house, and he's in a Saturn subperiod. So Saturn in the 12th house can make a person a little bit stupid. I know I have it in my 12th house. And what I mean by that is, if you knew this possibility was coming, that you might be questioning the election, why hadn't you planned better before the election occurred? So I'm not saying, and so for those of you who are saying, oh, you're pro-Trump or you're pro-Biden, I'm neither. I'm analyzing charts. Okay. In this role, as I'm sitting here today, I'm analyzing a chart. So essentially, and as I've told you before, many, many times, because we had that Mars-Mercury opposition, which looks like it's going to be gone soon, is still there. As I'm saying this, because that's going to be gone relatively soon. You can see Mercury's only 1 degree and 56 minutes. Expect lying for at least another couple of weeks, or at least another week or so, from both sides of the political fence. I don't care whether you're a Democrat or Republican or whatever you are, or you believe the media or you don't believe in the media. The information we're getting is screwed up. Okay? And I mean that from all parties. Okay? It's not just the Republicans or the Democrats or the media. It's essentially all parties involved in communications. There's some manipulation going on. Okay? So just keep that in mind. And you really won't get a clear idea of what's happening. Even this Mercury K2 combination is a lying combination. So we're not going to get out of it for about another month and a half, to be truthful with you. So again, everything you hear, take with like a pound of salt. I mean, I not even a grain, a pound of salt. Because this is a very dangerous period for us, not because there's any risks to the Republic, not because there's any risk to, there is some physical risk to the candidates, unfortunately, and I'd be lying if I didn't say that. I am not threatening them, just to be clear. And before anybody says that to me, I am not, and I'm not predicting illness. But the factors in their chart do indicate that they're undergoing some pretty adverse planetary transits right now. And that's why I'm saying, they both should be careful. They both should be on alert. They both should be very cautious about their health. The layout examples, let's go to the time space change, because we can use this as a December chart analysis too. Where the chart shows up is we have a Mars line like right over the East Coast here. Okay, so right over where I am right here. And actually that's a Mars line. And also, if we go down here, that's a Jupiter line, that's the Saturn line. So there's going to be, and it's interesting because we did have the earthquake in New Bedford a couple of weeks ago, so that Mars line is still there. So we might have a couple of more earthquakes. There's a Rahu line going right down the center of the country, pretty much over Texas, Houston area, I think it is. I should know that. I apologize. Yeah, it's Houston. And there's a moon line going over the west coast. There's a sun line, and the sun is with K2, don't forget. So there'll probably be some disruption or some possible violence in this part of the country. The part of the world I'm really concerned about, though, is where Saturn lines lie. And we're seeing Saturn lines going up over Nova Scotia, close to, so we have, this is hurricane season, close to Mars lines over here and Jupiter lines. So we should have a pretty expansive hurricane season. And the moon line goes over England and Scotland. So that's not really, that's another eclipse line. So there'll probably be some civil unrest in Ireland, I'm guessing, and Scotland. And also, we're probably going to see some government challenges in Italy, throughout Central Europe, through Eastern Europe, into Russia, and then down into Japan, and down into close to New Zealand. We're not going to see any major violence in New Zealand. The other thing is Australia's in kind of a panicky state right now. That's been on the news lately. So we have a Jupiter-Saturn conjunction right here, and that'll probably make that state a little bit panic-stricken for about the next 3 months or so. We do have a Mars line running through China, and Indonesia, and I would expect those two countries to have, and also looks like Cambodia and Thailand, and I would expect those countries to have some domestic problems as well. And also through Turkey has a Venus line running through it. That's pretty good. Venus is badly aspected right now, but it's okay. It's a benefic planet in a benefic sign. And Mercury's, so there's going to be some communication problems with Iran. And with Rahu over here, some panic and maybe some terrorist attacks throughout France and Germany over the next few months, over the next month or so. Mercury over here in Spain is really a kind of affecting the virus spread. But like I said, I'm kind of like hopefully optimistic that the virus will slow down a little bit, especially when Jupiter goes with Saturn. Saturn is slowed down before when that happened, and it actually ramped up again when Jupiter backed into Sagittarius, as I predicted it would. And it's not because Jupiter's an evil planet, it's because Jupiter likes to expand or spread things. So whenever you're looking for growth, look for good things to grow under Jupiter, but also look for bad things to grow. The other thing that I'm seeing also in this Mars line for the United States is basically a lot of fighting around Washington, D.C., a lot of disruption, a lot of arguments, maybe even demonstrations around this part of the country, all the way into Pennsylvania. I'd be surprised if they happened in Massachusetts, but not stunned. That's and I want to look at one more chart before I look at general indicators. The economy should continue to get better in the United States. It'll do more slowly though, because we're in a Saturn subperiod right now, and Saturn slows down recovery. So that should be until about April. I'm going to stop the screen sharing for the time being. I'm going to pull it on the screen. Let me see this one. And this is the December 14th eclipse. So this eclipse occurs with an Aries rising, it looks like to me. Rahu's in the second house, so will be some panic over money around December 14th. And also we have a cluster of planets in Scorpio, right? So that to me indicates some kind of water tragedy or some kind of water damage. Saturn and Jupiter are staying pretty close, although Jupiter is going to beat Saturn in planetary war, so that should make us a little bit more optimistic. I think this has something to do with the vaccine getting out there. Mars is still aspecting the house of media. Mercury is still with K2, so there are going to be what I would call false reports about the vaccine coming out. And if I'm looking carefully at the chart, legal issues look like they've tamed down a little bit around this time, but I still think they'll be going forward. And that Saturn-Mars aspect, it really won't be until the end of the month. Everything's kind of in the clear. That's what I'm prognosticating. If we look at the astro mapping relocator, not much changed. United States is a little bit less contentious, although there's more activity in Michigan, and more potential for domestic violence in Michigan, and that's going to continue really throughout the month and into January, unfortunately. Venus is going over Brazil, which is a good break for them, but is hitting South America, Venezuela, Ecuador, and that part of the world, unfortunately. So there'll probably be some increase in sadness or unhappiness in that part of the world. If we're looking at some flooding or some disease issues, we're really looking at Western Mexico, Texas, up through the middle of the country, all the way up into Michigan or close to Michigan, and even into Canada. And fights or arguments breaking out in Spain. I watch out for some natural disasters in Spain and Northwest Africa. I'd also watch out for some political upheaval in Italy. And Italy's been hit again by the pandemic pretty badly. And Sun, Moon, Mercury, and also in Arabia, Iran, and Russia. China, Mars looks like there's going to be border conflicts with China again. And Rahu's passing close to eastern Australia, and Australia will still be experiencing some problems. So if we're looking at the overall, and that's connected with the pandemic, this combination is connected with the pandemic. So if we're looking carefully at those parts of the world, those are the ones that will be affected, but they'll be affected really The eclipse will be visible down here, down in Argentina, down in South Africa, down in Australia, or close to Australia. So the eclipse will be visible largely in this part of the world. It doesn't mean it won't be felt in other places, but that's where the effect will be most intense. And if we're looking at, let's go back and look at the chart of the United States for a second. Sorry about that. To get this away, increase this. Close this. That's what we have to do. Okay. And let's go over here. Yeah, examples. We're gonna go to US chart. All right. So the US chart is between now and November 29th, we're in a Saturn subperiod. Mercury after November 29th, a lot of facts will come to the surface, and that's mainly because of the Mercury subperiod. They'll come up. So Saturn tends to suppress things and say, okay, let's give up, let's forget about it. Between November 29th and December 22nd, a lot of facts, a lot of new information is going to come to the surface. I don't know who it's going to be favorable to be honest with you. But I think you're going to see a lot of just a lot of things popping up that you'll be very, very surprised at. Mercury is really kind of a duplicitous planet. It really isn't entirely honest. And if it's under bad influence, it tends to get a little bit worse. And it has been under bad influence for a while, for most of this year. But I think you'll start to see us come out of that after December 31st when Venus pops in. Venus is a more benevolent planet. But I am a little bit worried about violence around the holiday season, around December 22nd to December 31st. If we're looking at this Saturn subperiod, we started November 2nd. That did sort of coincide with the rise in deaths from the COVID virus, and I'm not happy about seeing that. But I think you'll start to see. I'm hoping you'll start to see a tapering off of that particular phenomenon that we've been seeing essentially the second surge, as they're calling it right now. Again, I don't know when the first surge ended. You know, as far as I could tell, it was sort of like spreading throughout the country in fits and starts. But it's but essentially, rates in certain areas that have already been hit are going up. But there is some dispute about whether or not the New York rate is actually, if the data they're using is actually reflective of what's actually happening. And I don't mean in terms of the fact that there are more cases, but essentially the intensity of the surge. So let's go back here to the chart. So what to expect for the month? We'll use November 29th as the starting date. Let's see if I can get that back again. I'll pull up a now chart. And change that to December 1st. So we have basically a Scorpio sun, Scorpio rising. Venus is in the 12th house, so this can give hidden affairs or secret affairs. Saturn is aspecting Venus, so a lot of secret romantic activity will go unfulfilled because that aspect. Mars is aspecting Venus, so it'll make people more passionate, but it'll also make people more argumentative. And children in particular will be argumentative and difficult to control this month. Also, with the Sun K2, there'll be a lot of confusion connected with the government, as we already said many times before. The moon is actually in its best possible sign. It's in the sign Taurus, which is a marvelous sign for the moon. But it's with Rahu, and it's right on top of Rahu as the month begins. So even if a person has like a really delightful life, they'll want more. They'll want much more this month. That's especially true in relationship life. It's especially true in dealing with people, dealing with coworkers, dealing with colleagues. Mars is in the fifth house. It's a good placement for this, but it does increase competitiveness and animosity. Also, there's a great deal of trouble getting projects started this month, just because it's been happening this past month, but basically you'll be able to see projects that were started back in October finally reach completion around mid-December. I know it's been kind of a pain for people to start activities and not be able to finish them, but at least there's some promise that projects connected with housing and with work and things like that. It's also for people who've been trying to do a lot of physical activity um, or physical exercise. It's been a kind of a rotten month for that because Mars has been it's been a chore to find time to do anything. One of the reasons I haven't been doing these broadcasts for a couple of weeks is because I've just had like unexpected things pop up on me all over the place. So that's why I haven't been seeing you as often as I should, and I'll be right to find that over the next few weeks. The other thing you want to look at with this chart is so relationship life will be a challenge for a lot of people as it has been over the past year, but this time because last year I saw many people with prominent planets in Gemini and in Sagittarius calling off relationships or quitting relationships. Scorpio and Taurus are more fixed signs, so there'll be more of a dogged determination to hang on, even as people are trying to make themselves happier, if that makes any sense. And also, there'll also be a strong thirst for new knowledge, for new people, to meet new people. That would seem to be natural after a pandemic or during a pandemic, but it's gotten intensified with this lunar placement. So you are going to see people breaking quarantine, going to holiday parties, going to all this other stuff, and that won't be good, obviously, for quarantine matters, but also, like I said, we do have a vaccine now. It will take a few months for it to really kick in, obviously, so we're not talking about vaccine instant cure of the problem. It takes a while for that to seep into any system. And I think probably around April is when you see some improvement in that. But also from this chart, the signs which will have the most interesting time of it will be, and I'm going to go through the signs individually in a second, will be Scorpio, Taurus, and Capricorn, and Cancer. Now, these are Vedic signs. These aren't Western signs. So they essentially push everything back about one whole sign, and you'll have an idea of where you fall on that particular axis, okay? So essentially, and again, I am promising some Vedic astrology actual lessons as part of this broadcast, and I promise you I will get to them as well as the interviews. But even this took a considerable effort to pull together to just grab the time to do this, believe it or not. So I have to get up earlier. I have to start doing some things a little differently. I'm not blaming anybody else, but I had a lot of additional responsibilities too. So I'm going to have to figure out a way to make my schedule work a little better so I can get these things to you on a more timely basis. Okay, so enough self-flagellation for now. Anyway, all right. So we have Sun K2 conjunction. So that usually indicates some problem with self-confidence. People aren't sure what they want in life. And I'm going to start off over here. And Moon, kind of a moodiness or kind of a generalized dissatisfaction or impatience. And Saturn aspecting Mars, you want to make a change, but you're not sure it's the right time to make a change, all that other stuff. A lot of that'll break through the dams around the end of December when Mars goes into Aries. I can guarantee that. The other thing to keep in mind is you have. So let's start off with the signs. So if I start here with Aries, Aries is actually going to be relatively lucky in love. Okay, they may be a little bit shy or a little bit reticent about it, but they're actually going to have a fortunate time in romantic life. But they'll feel a little bit cash strapped, easily dissatisfied, but relationship partners will be very nice, very kind, very handsome, or very beautiful. But they'll also be worried about the relationship partner material will seem to be a little bit unsure or a little bit shy. That's perhaps the best way to put it. Career-wise, this sign will start to do better than it has over the past couple of months because of this Jupiter-Saturn conjunction. But they will have a period of like self-doubt for about another couple of weeks, starting into December. For Taurus, Sun, Moon, or Rising sign, and this is May 15th to June 15th. Essentially, this particular sign will be they'll seem very attractive, they'll seem very outspoken, very extravagant, very forceful in their personality, very demanding. But relationship partners will seem a little bit duller, a little bit uneasy, and also a little bit demanding. So there'll be that kind of a push-pull back and forth between them and relationship partners or business partners. Monetarily, this sign will do okay. Relationship partners will actually do fairly well this month. The moon is in the first house, so the strong desire nature for the sign over the next month or so, until the end of December. And you can see that basically, they'll also feel a little bit trapped or limited by relationship partners. Because Saturn's going to be in the 7th house, so it will be there for the next couple of years. Jupiter will be there. It will introduce them to new potential relationship partners. That'll be good for them, but they won't be able to move on them quite yet, not maybe for another few months. Career-wise, they're going to do great. They're going to actually receive some assets or some land or some cash. And overall, it looks like a fairly good month. A lot of work, though, for the sign over the next month. Gemini, rising, moon, ascendant. A better year for them than last year was. Still, this first month is going to be a little bit difficult for them between this last month, December 1st through December 31st. A little difficult because they will have a lot of stress at work, a lot of jealousy, a lot of people wishing them bad luck. And also they'll have Saturn in the 8th house, which also kind of holds them back career-wise. Jupiter will be in the 8th house, so they'll get unexpected gains or financial income. And Mars is going to be in the 10th house, so they'll be effectively able to fight back work-wise and study-wise. But they will feel like they're beleaguered this month. That'll improve a lot next month. Cancer has, again, relationship problems show up for this sign. In a lot of places, the sun, moon, rising sign. And essentially, but They'll feel content in their heart. Some problems are indicated with children, like some illnesses or diseases, relationship partners that will be difficult to deal with, but luck will overall be good. Mars is in the 9th house in this chart. It's the single best planet for Cancer rising, moon, or ascendant, or Cancer rising, sun or moon, excuse me. And Mars actually will give some chances at property and even some spiritual advancement this month. Leo has the sun in the 4th house, so there'll be unhappiness at home, a lot of potential for fighting and arguing at home. Work-wise, they'll seem unsatisfied with their work life, but they'll be a little bit hesitant to do anything about it because of Venus being in the 3rd house. Saturn will be in the 6th house. They'll have more competitors and adversaries than usual. And Mars in the 8th house, they may find themselves a little bit more victimized in relationships than normal. Moon in the 10th house is actually good for career along with Rahu, so you'll actually see them improving career-wise. But it'll take them about another until the end of the month before they feel like they're not being picked on in home life or in work matters, or before they'll feel content. But relationship-wise, they're going to actually do pretty well over the next couple of months, and you'll start to see some changes for them in relationship life. For Virgo has Mars in the 7th house, so it's strong potential for relationship unhappiness, fights, arguments. Home life will be disrupted or disturbed. But overall, Venus in the 2nd house for the sun is very good. Is very, very good. This particular sun sign or rising sign will actually have good luck, good financial success, good potential for happiness over the next couple of months, actually, and unexpected romantic gains in late December, early January. The other thing is, though, and their desires will be very strong, and they'll be very aggressive in terms of what they want and also very persuasive this month. Saturn and Jupiter in the 5th house. This will give additional creative work, more willingness to work for creative activities. And Mars in the 7th is always indicated before. Relationship life will be a little bit difficult. It'll lead to more fighting with spouses or even business partners. We have Rahu and Moon in the 9th house. This is actually a good combination. It'll give changing desires, but also an interest in learning about all sorts of new knowledge, new techniques, new strategies. It can change bosses, so the person may end up reporting to a new boss. But basically, this is not a bad combination. Very good for knowledge. Venus is in the 1st house for Libra, rising sun or moon. Actually, a very good month for Libra, mainly because Mars will be aspecting Venus, will make them a little bit too passionate. And when I say passionate, I mean easily tricked into relationships, and more accommodating. But this is a smart sign under normal circumstances. This is considered a place in which is good for getting people to like you. And they'll also have convincing speech like Virgo will, but they'll also be willing to give up more things in order to get more things. Good for education, but the education will have to be self-taught, so they'll have to be self-educated, but good for acquiring new knowledge. Mars is in the 6th house, so they will have enemies, and the enemy may be the relationship partner or people connected with their relationship life. Rahu Moon in the 8th house, strong desire for unknown or unseen objects, so they may be fascinated with somebody or something from another country or from another tradition than theirs. 9th house Lord is in the 2nd house. That's what's called Adana, or wealth producing yoga in the chart. and it will also give good talking opportunities to these individuals. 10th Lord is in the 8th house, so career life will be connected with investigating or learning more about things, okay? Sun is in the 2nd house. This is a definite Dana Yoga or wealth-producing combination in the Vedic chart. And 11th house, the 12th house Lord is in the 2nd house, so the person will spend a little bit more money than they probably feel comfortable with over the next couple of months. For Scorpio, Scorpio has K2, Sun, and Mercury in the 1st house. This is a big month for Scorpio. Moon in the 7th house, so new relationship opportunity, but not really sure this is the person you want. So just hang in there for a while. Next month you'll be certain. Saturn's in the 3rd, aspecting Mars in the 5th. We already spoke about this to a certain extent. Some problems disciplining or children or even creative urges. Rahu Moon, a lot of attraction towards people who are unavailable or who lived in a distant country. Career life looks good overall. You'll have changes in careers or new job opportunities coming in unexpectedly. And overall, it looks like a relatively good month for Scorpio. For Sagittarius, Jupiter and Saturn are in the 2nd house, so it should improve money, financial gains, although there will be some disruption in home life because Mars aspects the 7th house. And there will be some problems with jealous women for this sign over the next month or so. Also, from this chart, Venus in the 11th house, career-wise, you should do pretty well, although career may require you to travel or take on new responsibilities. Venus is in the 11th house, good friends, great friendships, good for financial gain. For Capricorn, Capricorn has Saturn in it. It's what's called a Sashi Yoga. It's a great personality yoga, so we have really 2 great personality yogas going on in this chart at the same time. One's a Venus great personality yoga, which is a Malavya yoga. And we also have Saturn in its own sign in the 1st house for Capricorn. So that's a great personality yoga for Capricorn. It accentuates Saturnian qualities, so hard work, desire to succeed, desire to win. And work life should actually be relatively straightforward and clear this month for the first time in many months. Relationship life will be a little bit confused, so not being able to decide whether or not this is the right person for you. But Mars is in the 3rd house. This particular sign will make a great deal of career progress because of the placement of the 10th house Lord, and the 11th house is packed, and the 5th house is packed with good planets. So this chart, Capricorn seems to be doing the best of all the signs this month because most of the planets are favorably placed from it. It's not perfect, but it's still a lot better than a lot of the other signs are. So career life should go well, relationship life should go well, although it'll be a little bit challenging at times. And friends should be also a little bit challenging, but you'll have a lot of financial gains. Aquarius is surrounded by malefics, so you have Saturn on one side and Mars on another side. But that's really not that bad for this particular sign. You have Rahu and Moon in the 5th house. Mars is in the 2nd house, so again, there's some difficulty with relationship partners that shows up again and again in several signs this month. And the Rahu Moon tends to give some domestic disturbance and some confusion in the workplace over career goals. But with Venus in the 9th house, you'll do actually comparatively well educationally and career-wise. Mars in the 2nd house, kind of rough speech, very direct speech. unambiguous speech coming to this sign over this coming month. So this sign looks to be fairly well placed, not as well placed as Capricorn is, but fairly well placed. Pisces, the last of our family of signs. So we have Mars in the first house, which is again Mars affliction. That's pretty common in charts. Rahu and Moon. So again, this sign is going to be determined to get what it wants. It's going to be determined to get what it wants, no matter what anybody else wants. And Rahu and Moon are placed in the third house. So strong desire, strong ambition to get ahead and to move forward. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fourth house Lord is Mercury. The Lord of the fourth house is in the ninth house. So that's good for educational attainment and for learning new things and even for learning hidden or secret things. And the seventh house Lord, the fifth house Lord is connected with children. That's fairly well placed, although the children will seem to be a little bit greedy, as I said before, for another sign. Sixth house, enemies. Enemies are not bad. They'll turn into friends before the end of the month. Venus is in the eighth house. You'll be attracted to good-looking relationship partners, or you're seen very attractive to other people. Ninth house has relatively good planets in it, so good income for spouse, good financial growth for the entire chart. 10th house Lord is Jupiter Lord, the 10th house and the 11th house. This should be good for financial growth and for financial well-being. So you'll start to see a lot more financial growth for the sign over the next few months. And that about wraps it up for this particular segment. Again, if you want to reach me for readings or for just see the email at the end, or go to neavis@comcast.net, or call me at 508-525-0001. If you want more information about my teaching activities or my readings, feel free to call me. You can reach me on my cell phone almost anytime. And that's it. We'll see how the election turns out finally. And I guess fairly soon. That's the feeling I'm getting. It's just. But again, I did say this was going to be kind of a long, drawn-out process. We did know part of what was happening by November 14th, as I said before, and that was Joe Biden was declared the winner. However, with court cases still ongoing, you can't put a lid on it. So that's the only reason I'm not putting a lid on it. Okay, so that's it for me. As always, it's been a pleasure, and I want to thank you for looking at this channel and wish you the best of luck in the next month and over the holidays. And namaste. Thank you. Bye, everyone. Gary Gomes signing out.